Hi, everyone, and welcome to K More Sports YouTube. Saturday night, week 12, and we have a lot of breaking news from the NFL tonight. The NFL has had a major COVID outbreak this weekend, with a lot of teams being affected by the COVID-19 situation. A lot of players on the COVID-19 list going into week 12. We will break it all down here with my man Titan Upload. He's going to join us to talk about the breaking news tonight. What should the NFL do? Should they suspend the season or should they keep going? And then we'll also talk about the Titans and the Colts as they get ready for week 12 of the NFL season. So my man Titan Upload, welcome in. How are you doing this evening? And how's everything going with you?
Hey, Ken, thanks for the invite. Everything's going well. Really excited about tomorrow. Just blessed to have football. Titans Colts should be a big battle. I mean, should be for the AFC South. And but you're right. At any moment, this thing can get pulled from us, and any moment, games can get canceled. Illinois and Ohio State got canceled today. They won't make that up for college football. So just have to kind of hold our breath a little bit. Fingers crossed that we can finish this thing out. But you're right, it's not looking good.
Yeah, not looking good for a lot of teams right now. We'll start off with the Titans. Actually, some good news for the Titans today. They activate David Long off the COVID list. Of course, he was our backup linebacker before he went on the COVID list to Jayon Brown. We'll also have Will Compton has been elevated once again to the active list, as well as punter Brett Kern also activated to the team as well. So, your initial thoughts on getting David Long back, filling that spot for Jayon Brown? How do you think he'll perform this week against the Colts?
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting look at him. I thought he did okay last year in the playoffs. He really stepped up when he needed to. I'm really interested in your opinion on Compton, and like a real opinion, non-biased. Like, what do you think of him? I'm sure we can get to that later. But I think Long, it's an addition week for him. Obviously, we need him, but are they going to pay Jayon Brown the amount of money that position is going for in the NFL? I think roughly around $15 million next season. I don't know if J Rob pays that. So it will be interesting to see if Long, who's quick, he's a smaller guy, but he can cover. May not be. I mean, he was pretty decent at West Virginia stuff in the run, but he can cover. He's like I said, he's a little bit quicker than Evans, I would think. And Evans, he just can't cover. I mean, that's just simple as that. He really has a difficult situation covering, but they got their work cut out from him. I know that Taylor can't go this week, but Hines was a real problem for them. So we'll see how Long matches up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think David Long, obviously, he played very well, pretty well in the playoff game when Jayon Brown went out against the Patriots last year. He filled that spot well. I thought he played really well against the Ravens in the playoff game last year. We really hadn't seen a lot of him here in 2020, and I was a little bit surprised that he hadn't been more in the rotation. But Vrabel's kept a lot of guys out of the linebacker rotation. We know that pitch count has been very high for the guys at the linebacker position. But with Clowney being out, now with Jayon Brown being out, you're going to have to depend on guys like David Long, guys like Will Compton. Compton, he's a fringe guy. He's been on the practice squad for a reason. He can play well in spurts. He kind of reminds me of Sambrillo, the left tackle. If you put him in for 18 to 20 snaps a game, they're okay. But when you're asking them to play 50, 55 snaps a game, then that's where it becomes a problem because defenses and smart quarterbacks can pick them out, they can identify them, and then they can attack them. So that's my concern with Compton. I feel a little bit more comfortable with David Long in there rather than Compton, but I do expect those guys to split snaps at that inside linebacker position.
Yeah, we'll see what he's made of. And I don't know why they've went away from him, to be honest with you. I mean, he doesn't seem like he's been in favor very much this season at all.
I'm not sure what's going on with that linebacker unit. Vrabel hasn't had a lot of confidence. I mean, I think Derek Roberson is really only playing by necessity right now because there's no one else left at that outside linebacker position. But I think if we can start to rotate those guys in, then we have a much better opportunity of success. Now, let's dive into the Colts because they have a lot of injury concerns and COVID 19 concerns as well. They'll be without their rookie running back, Jonathan Taylor. They'll also be without DeForest Buckner, their all pro defensive lineman that they traded number one draft pick for, as well as Autry along that defensive line. So that really should help our offensive line. We hope to have Sappho back. We should have Ben Jones back. Of course, we'll have Quisenberry, our third string left tackle. We don't know if we'll see any Isaiah Wilson tomorrow, but the Colts being depleted by COVID 19 along that that defensive front line, and then their running back Taylor also being out. How do you think that affects them?
Well, Kelly being out is going to be huge for the Colts. Their center, and
Yeah.
I really think that that's going to. I mean, center is a very important piece, an anchor, if you will, on that offensive line. Now we know Nelson's going to play. I know he missed some practice this week, but he'll play. But not having Taylor, that second running back, is really going to be an issue. Now, if we can do a better job on Hines, then that's really where it's going to come down to. Phillip Rivers is really going to have no other option. And then we can kind of zone in on Rivers. I think that's the key to this game. The Titans just got to do a decent job stopping the run, not letting Hines take over like he did a few weeks ago. I mean, he might have had only 115 all-purpose yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He seemed to be the guy who kept moving the chains. So we got to just do a better job on him.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. And I'm really worried about controlling Hines. I mean, he ate us up last time, even with Jayon Brown. So now without Jayon Brown, you have to worry about him in the passing game, him, getting into the secondary, getting to the second level. So I'm really concerned about Hines. But as you mentioned, Dennis Kelly, Kelly, their center, being out, that's going to be huge, huge for them, and hopefully a break for our defense. Any other thoughts on the game before we get into more of the breaking news with a lot of the other ramification of the COVID-19 with the other NFL teams around the league? Any other areas that you think the Titans can kind of exploit? I'm hoping that Ryan Tannehill, AJ Brown, and Corey Davis get on track as well.
yeah, I think it's going to be the way the Titans are going to win the game is they're going to have to run the football, and they're just going to have to stick with it. And when it's 3rd and 2, you're going to have to leave Derrick Henry on the field. I mean, last week I think the Titans showed a little bit of their cards. You've mentioned it many times earlier in the year how that you thought that Derrick Henry's on a pitch count. Well, I think the pitch count is over with. I mean, you got 6 games left to finish the season. Every one of these is going to be just as important as the next, but this one, this could really, really hurt the Colts. I mean, that Jaguars loss week 1. I mean, if the Titans would find a way to win at Lucas Oil this week or tomorrow, I mean, just think about it. Not only would we be not a half game back anymore, we would be basically a game and a half over the Colts. So I think it's very, very important. The one thing to exploit with the Colts, when you think about it, besides just Derrick Henry, is Kern's back. And I don't know if that's exploiting the Colts, but I think that is a huge, huge plus for the Titans. Because let's be honest, that game a few weeks ago in Nashville, I mentioned this earlier, like 4 minutes and 14 seconds, ESPN had the Titans as a 56.5% chance to win. And then the 17-yard punt happened, and then it blew up after that. So special teams going to be big this week, and Kern having him back. And like I said, going to have to ride Derrick Henry to the finish line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to be looking for the play calling of Arthur Smith to see if we have the running game going, will you continue with the running game until they stop it? Or if you start out passing, if you have the passing game going, will you continue with that until they stop it? I think a lot of times he tries to concentrate so much on having a 50-50 split between run and pass in that he doesn't exploit the other team's weakness. Now, the last two ball games, he's had a great game plan on the opening drive. He scripted the first drive perfectly. The last two games, we've been able to go down against the Ravens and get points, against the Colts and get points. But then we've struggled for the remainder of the ball game, the remainder of the first half. And we got shut out by the Colts in the second half. A lot of that was due to the special teams. But nevertheless, we didn't put any points on the board against them. Green Bay last week had 28 points in the first half, only got 3 points in the second half against the Colts. So we're going to have to make, Arthur Smith is going to have to be on his toes and out coach the Indianapolis coaching staff to make sure that we can generate points, not only on that first drive, but consistently throughout the ball game, because I'm thinking it's going to take at least 28 to 30 points to win this football game tomorrow.
Well, one thing's for certain. Our opening play, whenever the offense takes the field, will be play action. Book it.
All right. Well, now let's dive into some more news around the NFL tonight. And as we mentioned, a lot of COVID-19 situations going around the NFL. First with the Denver Broncos. They take on the New Orleans Saints tomorrow afternoon. This game opened up with New Orleans as a 6-point favorite on the road. Tonight, we learned that all four Denver quarterbacks will be held out of this game because I think Jeff Driscoll, their practice squad quarterback, tested positive for COVID today or maybe yesterday. And tonight, the NFL told the Broncos that the other three quarterbacks, including Drew Lock, would not be eligible to play tomorrow. So now the Broncos will go into this game against the Saints without a starting or a backup quarterback. They're going to have to go to a practice squad guy who used to play quarterback, I believe, in college, who's now a wide receiver. He's probably going to have to be their quarterback tomorrow. What are your thoughts on the NFL? I'm going to go through a couple of other these situations. But first, just your thoughts on Denver. Should they be forced to play this game tomorrow without a quarterback?
No, not at all. And with any other team, remember New England? I mean, I can't really talk too much for the Titans because I thought the league did plenty of favors for the Titans. They kind of kept moving their game back. They did everything they did with the Steelers, Ravens, and making them switch. But remember New England, same situation, and they backed up New England a couple games at least, right? I think they ended up playing on a Monday night. They're just like ignoring the Broncos. Now, here's the thing, Ken. This is why I don't like it. It's a safety concern. It's legitimately a safety concern. The NFL is just basically say whatever, figure it out. Quarterback is the one. I mean, if you think about it, you're going to end up getting somebody annihilated here. Now, it could be the quarterback, it could be a receiver, it could be the running back, it could be, an offensive lineman. The quarterback is in control. You call the wrong play, you go the wrong way, and then all of a sudden just chaos is going to break out. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think it makes the league look very, very greedy, and it also makes them look very weak. Like they can't even come up with a plan. It's okay to play week 18. It's okay to push this thing back. We don't have to. If you look at all the other leagues, they're flexible. It doesn't look like the NFL wants to be very flexible, and I can't stand it.
No, I agree with you 1,000%. Those are my exact sentiments. Is because not only, well, here's my thing. I'm going to break it down in a nutshell. The Titans played, I believe, in week 2 against the Colts, and we found out later that several of the players had COVID. Okay. Well, none of that transferred over to the Colts. In other words, you played a game with COVID, your players, and it did not transmit to another team during the game. The Ravens, this past Sunday, obviously played the Titans with several members of their team with COVID, unknown at the time, but it did not transfer to another Titan player during the game. So it's been shown throughout this season that you can play a football game without the virus transferring to another person during the game. I say that to say this. I understand the league's caution and concern if you have a player that's tested positive, but these three quarterbacks have not even tested positive, and you're holding them out of the game. So, like you said, not only it may be a 50-50 chance if they have it, if they don't have it, but what we do know for sure is that you're putting a guy out there to play football at the quarterback position, no matter who it is, that is going to be unprepared to play. And that's going to put every other player on the offensive side of the football at risk. Because if you're calling a play and you have three guys going the wrong way, and you leave a guy unprotected, whether that be a running back or a wide receiver or a tight end or whoever's at the quarterback position, you're putting that guy in way more danger of getting injured than you ever would by letting Drew Lock go out there to play if he doesn't have the virus, because there's probably less than a 1% chance that Drew Lock could transfer that to a player on the New Orleans Saints. Now, what you may have to say is, hey, we're going to go no huddle so that he's not in the huddle in close vicinity of the other Bronco players where he's talking to them right in their face, giving a play. Maybe you put some type of mandate where they have to go no huddle. But in any event, I agree with you 1,000%. I think this is a wrong move by the NFL. You have to use some common sense, and you can't just say, oh, go out there and play without a quarterback. It's insane to me.
It is. And, I go back and think, okay, I think it was a couple years ago we played the Redskins, which is now the Washington football team. I think it was like week 15 or something like that in Nashville. It was on a Saturday. I remember me and my kid were at that game. I think Washington went out and got a quarterback that week. And then we go back and look at a few years ago.
He played very well against us that
He
game.
did. He actually did play really well. Was it Josh Johnson or something? I mean, he was really, really good. And then if you remember, he used to be quarterback for the Bucks. This would have been years ago where the Titans went to Indianapolis. It was like, I think the last game of the season. The Colts just picked up some random who used to start in the league, but he was a free agent, just picked him up that week. And we were hoping we were going to lose because I think that solidified our number 1 draft pick that year. But yeah, the Colts just threw someone in. So here's the thing. Don't rush this game. Why do we need to play tomorrow? Give them a couple days. Play it on Tuesday at least, And then if you play it on Tuesday, maybe they can find something to come up with. Someone that at least played quarterback in the NFL that's on the street. It's just the one-time thing. You can keep things very vanilla, like a preseason game almost on offense. A lot of these guys know multiple offenses anyways. And then you can go back to the drawing board if you will not postpone it. I think you should postpone it. But worst comes to worst, give the Broncos a little bit of time to try to figure this thing out.
Yeah, I agree with you. And at least you give a couple of more days of testing that you can do for Drew Lock and the other quarterbacks to see if indeed they do come down with COVID. Because if they can go through today, they didn't test positive. Sunday, you give them Monday, and then you give them Tuesday morning. That's 3 more days of testing that you can give to these guys to see if they actually come down with the virus. And like you say, if you don't allow them to pick up another player, because I know Vrabel has talked a lot about how it's so hard to get, how hard it is to sign players as free agents off the street now because they have to go through so many tests. So it may not have enough time to bring someone in off the street, but at least you give the Broncos an extra couple of days to try to practice and try to prepare and come up with a game plan and play that game on Tuesday night. You just have a Tuesday night doubleheader. I don't know why you would put a team in a situation like this, less than 24 hours before kickoff.
Next Sunday, is it Chiefs and Broncos on Sunday Night Football? I could be wrong about that, but there were rumors that if the Browns and the Titans both win this week, that they would flex that game. So it would be quite interesting now with this dilemma. Do they put the Broncos in that primetime spot, even though they do not want to lose Mahomes? But is it worth it? I mean, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but it's got to be a very, very difficult situation in Denver for sure.
Yeah, it's Chiefs Broncos next Sunday night football. The NFL is in a very curious predicament right now. And moving on from Denver, of course, we know what's going on with the Baltimore Ravens. Um, Now they have 18 guys on the COVID list. I think when we went through it, I think at the most we had maybe 10 or 11, maybe 12 at the most. The Ravens now with 18 guys on the COVID list, including Lamar Jackson, and now the Pittsburgh Steelers, who've been talking and complaining about how their schedules have to be affected and they lost their bye week. Well, guess what? Karma is a you know what. And now James Conner, their starting running back, and three other Steelers are also on the COVID list. So their game, even though they've moved it to Tuesday, the Ravens may not even have enough players to play. I think they have 38 players out of their 53 on their active roster that are left eligible to play. And then they got to move up a whole bunch of guys from their practice squad. I mean, I mean, this is just a calamity. And your thoughts on the Steelers and Ravens, and the Steelers talking so much noise about everybody else getting COVID, and now they're coming down with cases.
Yeah, well, prayers for both teams. I know it's not easy, especially if you're a Ravens fan. But the Steelers, I mean, my goodness, did they run their mouth? I mean, Big Ben ran his mouth. We know Juju Smith just ran his mouth yet again with the Titans. He brought them back into the equation, blaming the Titans because we weren't unable to handle the situation or whatever. And then we know that Eric Ebron just, I can't figure him out. You know, one week he wants to spend, be at home for the birthday, but then on Thanksgiving. He doesn't want to spend the day with his family. But again, that one was all because Tomlin was giving them a whole week off, supposedly all the way up to Wednesday. And who knows? Maybe, Eric Ebron's got a PlayStation 5 or whatever coming in the mail. So he wanted to play it over the weekend. But it's sad because this game with so many Ravens, why, again, we've talked about this already with safety issues. Why even put the Ravens out there? It's not going to get any better. They're expecting even more. Just bump this game to week 18. And then you know what? It may work out to help the NFL because it could be the only game that week, but it could mean something. But then you look at it from the other end, like the Ravens, they're really in disarray. They have 4 losses now. They're probably not catching the Steelers.
No,
So that's
no.
why that game doesn't really mean much anyway. So back it up to week 18, and who knows? Maybe you don't even have to play it, especially if, like I said, the Steelers already clinched and the Ravens are already out of the playoffs. So
Yeah, it makes no sense. If the Ravens continue to have more positive tests Sunday morning and again on Monday, because I know the thing with us, we had to have at least, I think, 1 or 2 days of with nobody testing positive before anyone could go back into the building. So if the Ravens, if they continue to test positive, or if the Steelers get more positive tests between now and Tuesday, then what do you do, NFL? I mean, you're going to make the Broncos play on Sunday with no quarterbacks. Then what are you going to do about the Steelers and Ravens if they continue to test positive? One more breaking news tonight. The San Francisco 49ers may have to relocate due to COVID-19 in Santa Clara County because Santa Clara County has now put a 3-week ban on all sporting activities in that county, which would include the 49ers. So now the 49ers are talking with the NFL because I believe they have 2 home games in the next 3 weeks. They have to find somewhere to play football now. So what happens in that situation? Do they go down to Los Angeles? Maybe they go down to San Diego and play. Maybe they try to share the stadium in Vegas. What does the NFL do about the San Francisco 49ers at this point?
what about Oakland? Or are they in the same county?
I'm not sure. I think they're in a different county. I did think about Oakland. I'm not sure how much they have kept that stadium up since the Raiders left last season. Is it in decent shape to play football? Because that field has always been a concern for health reasons particularly when it's baseball season going on. So I guess it would depend on how good a shape that field is in Oakland. So that could be a possibility.
Yeah, or any collegiate stadium. I know they'd have to do something with the turf, but there's no fans, I don't think, or very limited. So
Yeah, they
you
don't have
wouldn't have to
any
worry
fans
about
in
that.
California.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. Like, when are these governors going to say enough's enough? And then you really have a issue on your hands. But you kind of went back and you said something about the NFL, and there were certain standards we had to follow with having so many days of, like, no positives. But it's just me, or maybe it is just me, I don't know, but it seems like as we go, people make up their own rules, and like the rules consistently change. And now with the new guidelines supposedly going back to 7 to 10 days, we'll see how much that kind of changed with the close contacts. But I think that's the most frustrating. Like, we're up, we're down, it's a rule one week, and then they kind of move it around the other week. They just find ways to play these games. And it seems like, to me, they're making things up as they go just to get these games in. And I guess I don't really like that. So,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, my thoughts is, we should try, or the NFL should move this back. I mean, in my opinion, they need to move. They should suspend the season at this point, as far as I'm concerned. We're going to take a look at the NFL calendar, and this is how it plays out. Now, week 17 is that first week in January. January, I believe, 2nd, or January 3rd, 2nd and 3rd. Then you have the wild card games January 9th, the divisional games the following week, the title games on the 24th. Then you have that off week on January 31st, before the Super Bowl. In my opinion, with everything that we've just talked about, if I'm the NFL, I'm saying, all right, guys, let's pause the season. Let's recalibrate. Let's figure out what we can do. Do we need to put these teams in individual bubbles? You only have 1 month left, or really about 5 to 6 weeks left in the NFL season for half of the teams, because half the teams aren't going to the playoffs. So they can go into individual bubbles for the remainder of the season, in my opinion. And then the playoff teams continue to stay in those individual bubbles as you move throughout the postseason, because the NBA did this for 3 months. Major League Baseball did this for 3 to 4 weeks while they went through the playoffs. I think you take a week off, you pause the schedule, let everybody get healthy, and say, listen, each team rent out, a large hotel in your city, or 2 or 3 nice properties in your city. Maybe you put your offensive team and your offensive coaches in one hotel, your defensive staff in another hotel, and you try to make it through this season. Because right now, with the amount of COVID situations that we've just talked about, and that's going to continue to pop up as we get deeper into the winter and into the holiday season, I think they just need to pause it, move everything down a week. Even if you have to move the Super Bowl back a week or two, it's not going to hurt anything, because you're only going to have 15 to 20,000 fans at the Super Bowl anyway. Your thoughts?
well, yeah. And then I'm thinking, if you are going to cut the season short, so let's say you take a couple weeks off, I would be in favor of that. I mean, you obviously you're going to play this week, but let's say the next 2 weeks you take them off. The only question comes into, okay, well, you're going to get into fairness. And I know that the fairness thing has been talked about before the season started, how this is a year where being fair just ain't in the books. But I'm going through these divisions right now, and we know the NFC West is very, very competitive. The NFC South is also pretty competitive between the Saints and the Bucks, but the Panthers and Falcons, for all accounts, are pretty much done. And to be honest with you, the Bucks are probably going to lose. I think they'll lose to the Chiefs. I know they can win, but that's 5 losses. They're probably not catching the Saints. They've been swept by the Saints. Then you look at the NFC East. We'll just skip that one, Ken, because I don't even want to go there. But NFC North, same thing. Packers and Bears play this week. Packers win. Bears are in disarray. They're not catching them. And then the Vikings and the Lions are pretty much out of it already. Then you go to the AFC. I mean, the Titans and the Colts, a lot's going to be determined based on tomorrow. But the AFC North, that's over with already for the most part. Cleveland has a fighter's chance, but obviously there's going to be a wild card implication. And then you look at the Chiefs. I mean, they're 9-1. So I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of these divisions still up in the air, but half of them aren't. And there's a lot of bad teams playing in a lot of these games, like you mentioned. So, and there's got to be a way they can figure this thing out. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's in the NFL bloodline, so to speak. I think they're going to push through to the end.
I mean, I agree with you, but I think at some point common sense has to kick in. I would hope that, I mean, if it were me, I'd pause it at midnight tonight. Look, guys, we're not going to play tomorrow. We won't have any games tomorrow. We're not going to play Monday. We're not going to play Tuesday. We'll push all these games back to wild card week, January 9th. And we push everything else down a week. We can still have the Super Bowl on February 7th. If you want to pause it for 2 weeks, then you move that wild card game down to the 24th, divisional game down to the 31st, title games down to February 7th, Super Bowl February 14th. You can have the Super Bowl on Valentine's Day. I'm sure all the females will love that. All the guys will be at home.
Steve McNair's birthday, man.
Steve McNair's birthday. My daughter's birthday is on the 13th. So, we can have a big old Valentine's Day Super Bowl party, birthday party at the crib. That'd be great. Watching the Titans in the Super Bowl. But I would I don't think the NFL will. I agree with you. But I'm curious what everybody's thoughts are watching that are going to rewatch this. Put your comments in the section. And by the way, please go subscribe to our channels. We would definitely appreciate that. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the comment button. We want to know what you guys think about everything. But should the NFL suspend the season? That's the main question we want to know as we go into week 12. Before we get out of here, we're going to take a look. We were just talking about the schedules and the playoff probabilities, and we're going to take a look at the Titans and what they have as far as their opportunities to get into the playoffs. And right now, we're showing them with an 82% chance as it stands today to get into the playoffs. And we have, am I still up? Tighten upload? Okay. There we go.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to pull this up and we're going to go through and just mark off wins and losses and what we think and how this is going to end up and what are our chances getting into the playoffs. Your thoughts on the game tomorrow, win or loss, and how?
Both teams need to win. I think both teams need to win. There's only be 5 weeks left. Again, if we take care of business against the Texans, which actually look pretty decent now, so Colts got to play them twice, I think next week as well. But if you look at how we are and where we're going with this thing, I mean, we don't have any divisional losses besides the Colts. So if we can get payback tomorrow, then that gives the Colts 2 losses in the division. So we would need to lose basically 2 more games, and the Colts need to win out for them to win the division. So I think tomorrow's a huge game for both teams. But if we don't win tomorrow with all the injuries, I mean, we have many injuries too. But this isn't anything new for the Titans. I mean, we've been playing with injuries pretty much since Lawan went down. But when you look on the other side of the ball, the Colts have a lot of guys out. So you got to take advantage of it. So I think the Titans will win tomorrow. I think it's going to be close. And, it could go either way. I mean, it's going to be a good game. It literally could go either way, a turnover here or there. But I think the Titans are actually due for another good performance. I think they got a lot after the overtime win. And again, Derrick Henry's not on a pitch count, I don't think, anymore. So the Titans are going to play that style, that grinded out style that they did in the playoffs. I like the Titans tomorrow.
All right. So if the Titans win, they go to a 94% probability, all but lock up a playoff spot, and they increase their chances to 77% of winning the division, which means they would host a wild card game. If they lose tomorrow, then that probability drops from 82% down to 75%. Still a good chance to make the playoffs, but the chances of winning the division and hosting a wild card game, that drops all the way down to 15%. So
Yep.
we'll go ahead and put them in the win column. I'm a little leery on tomorrow because we've lost 20 of the last 24 to the Colts. I don't know what it is about not being able to defeat that team, but we just continue to struggle. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I have not been a good prognosticator so far this season, so I'm going to stay away from that. But we'll go ahead and put the Titans in the win column per Titan upload. Browns
Hey, I think
next
we're
week.
we're undefeated with Clowney out, so we got that going for us.
Yeah, we'll see if Clowney and Jayon Brown. We'll see how that goes for us. Browns the following week at home. I would assume that we would win that game. Yes, say you.
I don't know, Ken.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I
Oh,
don't know. And the only reason why you've won 2 back-to-back road games, which a lot of people didn't give you credit that you could win. Going to Baltimore, you beat them. You win the huge game against the Colts. The Browns, they play a
letdown game.
style. They play a
Letdown game.
style. That's tough. I mean, they're going to come in and ground and pound, and then we know that they have some receivers that can make. I'll be honest, they have better receiver core, even with Beckham out, I think, than the Colts do, and they got some tight ends. So I mean, it's not going to be as easy, especially if their defense gets back. The Browns, I know they got some key guys out, but the Browns are. I think the Browns are for real. I'm just going to say that, but
All right. The
still think we
return
can win, but the same.
the return of Jack Conklin. So I'm going to put that in the L category. You're a little bit shaky on that one. That could be a letdown game for us. And we know what happened when we had the letdown game in Cincinnati. So still in good shape, though, if we beat the Colts and lose to the Browns at home. Jaguars, week 15, I think that would be 12, 13, week 14. Jaguars.
No quarterback. We win that game.
Win that game. All right. Critical game because it's a division game. So that's what's critical about that one. Detroit just fired their coach and their general manager. Will they still be playing hard at that time? Will they mail it in? Your thoughts on Detroit? We've seen team with interim coaches now. The Texans are playing better. The Atlanta Falcons are playing better. Does Detroit get a little boost for the final few games of the season?
They'll get a boost. Maybe a little bit even tomorrow and maybe next week. But I think by the time they come to Nashville, it'll be the last game towards the end of the season almost. So they got 3 games left when they come to Nashville. I think by then they'll be trying to figure things out. And I don't even know if Matthew Stafford will actually even be the quarterback by then. He might be hurt. You know what I mean? Him staying healthy for a whole season has been kind of difficult, I think, but we'll have to see. But I think we'll take care of business against the Lions.
All right, we'll put that one in the W column. And then the final 2 games of the season, these games are going to be very difficult on the road. You go to Green Bay, where it's likely to be frigid conditions against Aaron Rodgers. At that time, they may have clinched their division at that point, but I'm sure they will still be fighting for home field with teams like Seattle and the Rams and the Saints and the NFC. So I'm sure that'll be a very big game for them. That's supposed to be a Sunday night game, so the temperatures will be even colder at that point. Your thoughts going into Green Bay late December on a Sunday night?
I originally had us winning. I think we pose a lot of fits for the Packers on our style, how we play. If the Colts kind of did it. I think physical teams really give the Packers a lot of issues. So the only issue is, do we have the defense that can stand up against the Packers offense? You know what I mean? Like the Colts defense, pretty good. The 49ers last year that basically whooped them twice, their defense was pretty good. The Packers got annihilated to the Bucks. Their defense is pretty good. You see where I'm going with that?
Yep.
I don't
Yep.
know if our defense is good enough like those other physical teams. I know we have a physical offense, but I mean, that's going to be a Derrick Henry showcase game, I would think. So again, we're going to play that grinded out style, how we do on offense. Tannehill might only have 115 passing yards, but I don't know. For the sake of the argument, we'll go with the Packers there.
Okay.
LaFleur, maybe he's got our number. Who knows? So it should be a nice to see him. But I don't know. It's a division, or it's a cross conference game.
Right.
One thing that like Colts fans don't understand, they're undefeated. They're all like bragging about how they're 4-0 against the NFC North, which is great. Good for you guys. But when it comes down to tiebreaker scenarios, it's not going to help you in the division. And when you're going up against another AFC foe and that there's a logjam there, the AFC conference games mean more than the NFC one. So if we lose to the Packers, I think, if that's the one we're going to lose, that's probably the one we want to lose.
I want fans to remember this. Assuming this plays out the way we have it on the board right now, when the Titans go to play the Packers, this is not going to be an important game. Let me just put it as a no game at that point. At this point, we have a 98% chance of making the playoffs, 84% to host the wild card, which means we win the division. That game will be an irrelevant game for us, just like the Saints game was last year in week 16. If you remember, we sat Derrick Henry that game because he had been overworked to that point. He had a little bit of a hamstring injury, and we knew we were going to need him for that final game against the Texans to get into the playoffs. I think the same situation arises this year. Assuming the board goes as we have it laid out, we beat the Colts, say we lay an egg to the Browns, we come back and beat the Jags and the Lions. That game against the Packers, we could sit a Derrick Henry. We could sit a couple of guys that may be beat up, an A.J. Brown or Corey Davis, in order to play this final game against the Texans, because this is going to be a critical game for us to win the division, assuming the Colts keep pace. Because if the Colts keep pace, the Colts play the Jaguars the last game of the season. Now, they still have 2 games with the Texans. They could sweep the Texans. They could split because Houston is playing better. But I could see us sitting guys against the Packers and loading up to beat the Texans. Because if for some reason, let's just say we beat the Packers and then we lose to the Texans, our probability drops a little bit in winning the division depending on what the Colts do. Assuming the Colts win all the rest of their divisional games, we could end up in a tie, and then it would go to an additional tiebreaker. So I could see us sitting guys against the Packers before we play the Texans at the end of the season.
Yeah, and that's why I made a point of the whole NFC, because if it does go to a tie, I think one of your first tiebreakers is the AFC, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first tiebreakers head to head, which will be tied with the Colts, and then second will be division record. So if we sweep the rest of the division, we beat the Jaguars, we beat the Texans, and if we end up with a tie with Indy, then we win the division. But if we end up losing that game to the Texans at the end of the season, then it would go to the third tiebreaker, assuming we're tied. And the third tiebreaker is better common games. And then the common games would be our games against our division, our games against the NFC North, and our games against the AFC North. And so we'd have to see how we did in those games against those teams compared to Indy. So that's why that game against Houston is going to be much more critical, as you mentioned, than the game against the Packers.
Yeah. And who knows? Hopefully we got it under. I mean, the Colts play the Steelers, play at Las Vegas, and the Texans are playing pretty well. I mean, I would give Watson a chance to beat anybody. at any moment, and that includes us too. So be nice if they could get one against the Colts. That would really help us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Just pulling up the coach schedule here, just a quick look at that before we get out of here. But yeah, they have the Titans, the Texans. They have the Raiders left on their schedule. The Texans again, the Steelers, and the Jags. So the Colts, all of a sudden, what looked like a fairly easy schedule going down the stretch, now it's become a more difficult schedule because those two games with the Texans, with the Raiders sandwiched in between, now those become much more difficult games for Indy. So I think Indy could be in a little bit of trouble because I would expect them to split with the Texans, the way the Texans are playing right now. I don't expect them to go to Las Vegas and beat the Raiders, even with no fans. I think the Raiders are one of the best teams in the AFC. And then that Steeler game, the Steelers are still going to be playing for home field advantage at that point because they're going to have Kansas City on their heels. So the Steelers aren't going to be resting players at the end of the season in that Week 16 matchup.
Yeah, fans need to start going for the Chiefs. I
Yeah.
mean, this week
Yes.
against the Bucks, go for the Chiefs. You want to put
Yes.
as much pressure on the Steelers as possible. You don't want the Browns to keep winning because you're going to be competing with the Browns if you don't win the division.
Right.
You just want them to be able to play the Colts, Steelers and Colts, and be a game that the Steelers need. You know what I mean? So that's going to be key.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, once again, Titan Upload, follow him at Titan Upload. Follow me here at K More Sports. Please hit the subscribe button on the way out. Leave us your comments. Let us what you think. Should the NFL suspend the season? Should they keep going? What do you think about the Titans and Colts tomorrow? Titans come out on top, Colts come out top. Let us know your reasons why. And I'm sure Titan Upload, tell us what you got going on the rest of the weekend. You got any shows coming up, post game, watch parties? What do you got going on for the Colts game?
Yeah. So tomorrow another watch party. My wife gave me the clearance, so we're gonna go ahead and roll with that. Should be a lot of fun. It's always fun to interact with Colts fans, with the Titans, and like I said, the Titans community is awesome. And I the Colts, they come in. It's usually a good mix. I have a lot of good discussions going on. Just watching the game, it's a lot of fun. And then right afterwards, going it's just breaking it all down. So hopefully you can join me if you're free tomorrow, because this game, if we win, it's obviously the biggest game of the year. So we got to win, and hopefully everything will work itself out, because I don't think either team wins the division if they don't win tomorrow. So it's definitely a big one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah, I'll be at home. The game is being shown locally here in the Houston area, so I will definitely be at home watching it. So I will definitely join you on your show tomorrow, and then on Monday I will be back with Titans the day after. We'll take a look at what happened, how we won, how we lost, and we'll break that all down on Monday on my show, Monday evening, probably around 8 p.m. Central Time. But on tomorrow, we'll hop over to Titan Upload channel for the watch party and the after game and talk about what we pray and hope will be a division win.
A big one.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this Saturday night here in the Houston area. It's wet and rainy. I've been in the house all day, so I'm gonna get some rest and get ready for tomorrow. And we'll see Titan Upload on tomorrow, and then I will see you guys back here on Monday night. So for Titan Upload and myself, tighten up, hit the like button, hit our subscribe buttons. Thank you very much, my man. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you. Tighten up.
All right, tighten up.